Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Brilliant. Welcome back to the 75th ISPA Anniversary Congress, back to the Perelman. This is Pitch New Works, and your handout and the schedule will be telling you it runs to 11:45. We're actually going to run to 12, to midday, to make sure all these projects have the time that they need. In the next 2 hours, we have 10 amazing projects from literally all over the world. Several of them are co-productions developed across different regions. And in the next 2 hours, we'll see work from North and South America, from Europe, from South Africa, from Central and Southeast Asia. 101 projects applied for a place in Pitch New Work. We think that's the second biggest number ever. 4 of them have recently premiered, so they're looking for opportunities to tour internationally outside their own bases. The other 6 are still in development, and they'll be premiering at some point in the next 2 years. Those 101 applications were whittled down to the 10 projects we're going to see this morning by ISPA's Pitch New Works Committee, whose names will appear, I think, in a second on the screen. They're people with, with great experience in international touring and project development, and also a lot of experience in different cultures and audiences around the world. Thanks to them, and also thanks to Fisher Dax Associates, the great American theatre design house, who are sponsors of Pitch New Works. So the usual rules, people who've been before will know the rules. Each pair of presenters has 7 minutes to present their pitch. Then if they pass the 7-minute mark with impeccable Canadian courtesy, I will cut them off, and then open it up for 3 minutes for Q&A, which is of 2 kinds of Q&A. I'll ask 1 or 2 and then to come to you. One is questions about the project, not complicated forensic ones. They're better for the ProEx afterwards. But questions about the headline of the project, and also, if you've seen the piece or you've presented the artists, quick, short endorsements are great to have as well. And say who you are. And to ask a question, please wave at a mic runner, but because this is a very compressed session and we've got a lot to get through, if you have a big speaking voice, just stand up, catch my attention and speak. And if a thing isn't clear, I'll repeat it for the video. All the contact information you need, financial information about the project, is in the handout that you may have been given when you came in, but if you haven't got a physical copy, you get it off that QR code. And then after the session, the presenters will be at the ProEx in Convene, about 5 minutes walk from here, where you can talk in much more detail about the project. So, we start in Norway with dance, with BIRGET. Ways to deal, ways to heal. It's a new work from Carte Blanche, Norway's contemporary national company of contemporary dance, and it's choreographed by the Sami choreographer Eliso Fasara and the Sami visual artist and architect Yuan Nango. Carte Blanche was founded 34 years ago in Bergen. It consists of 14 dancers, literally from all over the world. And the Sami are the indigenous peoples at the top of the Scandinavian peninsula, so across Norway and Sweden, Finland and Russia. And the title of the piece, the Sami word BIRGET, means coping or surviving in a changing environment. It was premiered in Oslo last February. It's since toured in Scandinavia. And here to present BIRGET is the touring director of Carte Blanche, Gulli Seksa.
Carte Blanche, the Norwegian National Company of Contemporary Dance, was established in 1989 in Bergen on the west coast of Norway, and is owned and funded by the Norwegian Ministry of Culture, Vestland County Council, and the city of Bergen. The ensemble consists of 14 dancers from all over the world with a prominent individuality and presence on stage. From our home base, Studio Bergen, we make 2 to 3 new creations each season, working with Norwegian and international guest choreographers with strong artistic vision. We tour both in Norway and internationally throughout the year, and with our repertoire, we can tour with different pieces at the same time. We envision touring with several venues or festivals within the same route, and we wish to combine our touring with off-stage activities to meet and engage the audience in a variety of ways. Here at ISPA, we hope to connect with possible collaborators for our future tours. BIRGET, Ways to Deal, Ways to Heal, is a collaborative work between choreographer Elle Sofusara and the visual artist Yuan Nangu. In their work, Elle Sofusara questions the importance of being part of a community and the kinship between people, while Yuan Nangu investigates the nomadic concept of space and territories around the idea of home. Their research builds from their environment, which influences and shapes their works. BIRGET, Ways to Deal, Ways to Heal, is a response to the Norwegian Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which in June 2023 submitted proposals to reconcile the Sami and the Norwegian people. The title is based on a Sami expression, BIRGET, which means coping and surviving in a changing environment. This term has been incorporated both in the relation to the thematic in the piece and as concept of the aesthetic of the scenography. Driven by BIRGET, Sara, Nangu, and Carte Blanche invite the audience to overcome the fear of touching a heavy and challenging topic with a frisky performance that questions social, political boundaries, limitations, and today's climate of reconciliation.
Vi dro til Kautokeino ganske i begynnelsen av prosessen for å gi danserne en slags kroppslig opplevelse av både landskapet, kulturen og folkene og snøen og kulda.
You walk with humbleness, especially when you start or you come to a new place.
Dette med det samiske og den samiske kulturen jo en veldig viktig i det her verket. Så det var også viktig for oss at danserne som skal liksom bære verket, bære kroppen til verket, får en slags kroppslig forståelse for det.
Vi jo begge samiske, med familie fra samme område. Så det var vel et av utgangspunktene våre, var vel at vi ville prøve å jobbe med våre røtter, og fant vel en slags grunntone i det. Vi ble opptatt i en diskusjon hvor vi diskuterte de liksom komplekse historiene til det samiske i det norske. Hvordan den samiske kulturen har blitt assimilert, og hvordan fornorskningstida har liksom påvirket både min familie og egentlig hele kulturen der oppe.
Vi har gjort intervju med samer om deres erfaringer, for eksempel fra fornorskninger og på en måte statlige overgrep. De historiene delt med danserne, så hver danser har sin historie som de har hørt, og som de på en måte bærer med seg i forestillingen.
Alongside this production, the documentary BIRGET, A Portrait of a Process, has been created to highlight the encounter between Elle Sofusara, Yuan Nangu, and Carte Blanche. It explores the thematic of the performance, addresses questions that arouse during the process, and illuminates aspects of Sami culture and tradition. The film is a part of the tour to enrich and contextualize the piece for the audience. We hope that BIRGET, Ways to Deal, Ways to Heal, can contribute to increase visibility of Sara's and Nangu's works and develop knowledge about the Sami culture and tradition. If you have any questions or if you want to know more, please get in touch with me here at ISPA. It would be a great pleasure to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is BIRGET Carte Blanche's first Sami project? Because that feels a really important moment, if that's true.
Yeah, that is correct. And
Did anyone here see the premiere or the early performances of BIRGET? Yes. Give us a snapshot of how it was.
Extremely emotional and very, very strong work. Simple but strong.
Should repeat that for the video. Extremely simple and strong, very emotional piece. I'm thinking of audiences around the world who would get this. Canadian audiences, I think, would really get this with the huge amount of Arctic Canada. Are there other communities that you're keen to tour it to?
Yeah, well, we also look for touring here in the US, and with this piece, I think it would fit very much.
Yeah.
We also been to France, and there we also work on contextualize for the audience, also to understand the concept and the thematic.
Yeah. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Oh, okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, a fascinating multinational musical collaboration premiering in May in Berlin at Classical Next, which is the huge gathering from all sectors of the classical and art music industry. It brings together over 1,000 people from over 45 countries in Berlin. And A Soft Wind Stirs, which will open Classical Next, is the latest work from Peter Weigeld's The Third Orchestra. It's another of those projects that brings together musicians from a huge mix of different nations and cultures, musical backgrounds, in a kind of musical alchemy or a sort of cultural casserole. It's a semi-improvised journey, and when it tours after its premiere, the piece will combine its global orchestra of touring musicians with local ensembles. So effectively, it'll be recreated in each place to which it tours. Here to present A Soft Wind Stirs, both from the Third Orchestra, are the Associate Artistic Director, Huang, and the Artistic Director, Peter Weigeld.
Good morning.
Bonjour.
From one note
to every note.
That's the Third Orchestra. Here recording with our friends from Georgia.
We have amazing musicians from right across world traditions, folk, classical, jazz, experimental.
Who come not as representatives, but as themselves with their unique stories.
In this radical inclusion, every voice rings clear.
This is Thirdness.
Hear our project.
I've returned to this Tagore poem over and over for 30 years. A ship sails with no wind across the Indian Ocean, effortless to the horizon. It's about being on the edge.
Liminal.
About the bliss of absorption. Now, the moment I've been waiting for has come. The piece is for Ruhengese. There will be Mauritian trance rhythms, Creole singing.
This is work in progress.
Soft wind stirs the white sail without a spark. Never have I seen such navigation. It wants to part, living on this edge, all wanting, all getting.
A Soft Wind premieres at Classical Next in Berlin in May. This major forum now seeks from us a more global, multi-genre perspective.
So Soft Wind will be on day 2, but on day 1, Peter has been asked to direct 4 ensembles together to close the opening evening.
Will be amazing, we think. The Barbican Centre hosted our launch, and I co-created the orchestra with the wonderful late John Cumming of the London Jazz Festival.
We followed John's vision to travel with a corps, then form new third orchestras.
We love to co-create with the centres we visit. This year, 3 Southampton artists applied to work with us. In the interview, I asked Isa what the sound of the orchestra said to him. He said, thought for a moment and said, coastal. Perfect. The liminal place where the land meets the sea, where journeys begin. The project was born.
Peter's sessions are about presence, mindful presence. We are encouraged to listen, not just to the notes, but to the wisdom within each player. Peter guides rather than dictates. Dissonant tones can open new doors.
Peter knows how to hold the people, to use that hold for transformation. Then you go beyond yourself, beyond style. If you are not afraid, you just can win.
There's always laughter.
So Zoran doesn't read music, but I always say to him, you never play a wrong note.
We keep our own individuality and express our own things. So these kind of contradictory things can coexist. I love this kind of a unique possibility of the third orchestra.
Coexistence. A gentle oud groove with wonderful dilruba. A bent note on a peeper, firing everybody into action.
Beautiful Chinese air leading to a mesmeric sax solo.
A deep undersea texture. As we wrote, the Southampton guys pointed out that we were close to where the Mayflower had sailed for the New World. So we ended up in the New World.
So here, the work tells the stories of a city.
Then bigger stories. What is the New World? What is the New World?
Now.
The project.
So we'd like to make you an offer. We will bring a soft wind to your communities, adding in their unique stories of journeys and horizon.
All musicians welcome, from 3, like Southampton,
200.
maybe dancers.
Tapestry makers.
Join this global orchestra. We have a global ambition, seeking cultural change, seeking healing in the world.
So it is about bridging the gap.
But maybe better,
We shall not
the spark
allow
across the gap.
trauma to be our mirror. We will rise instead. Amaze, be brave. Be brave.
Merci à tous.
Thank you.
Are you in effect touring the Berlin piece, or is the tour a new project?
We have this wonderful concept of a backbone. So we will tour our backbone, and maybe have that groove from the beginning. We'll have Mauritian grooves, and then it evolves, and we add new episodes, new islands in the ocean with the people we're with. So we always have a centre, something to hold, like the backbone, but then it evolves out of it.
And I'm sure a lot of people will be wondering, how do you go about the process of selecting the local musicians in each of the places you go to?
It's very much about partners. So finding partners, spending time with partners, spending time in the place. So they say, this is the person for you, meeting them, writing with them. So it has to be sort of organic, not off the shelf.
Yeah. It feels quintessentially a festival project. It doesn't feel something that goes into a whole long series. It just feels the sort of explosion of energy that feels natural to a festival.
I think there's a trend in the world to not jump in and out, not arrive and go the next day. So we spend a week, we drink some beer, we have some curry, and we make new work with people.
Sustainable touring.
Indeed, yeah. We go with a small group, build a bigger group.
Any questions? I think these presentations are so dazzling, the audience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So next to the US for another piece of multi-dimensional music, but very different. This is Demon Fruit Blues. It's a theatrical concert from the multidisciplinary composer and performer Tamerkali. It's a piece about womanhood and the origins of misogyny, mixing together modern rock, new classical, gospel, the blues, and African rhythms. It had development support from a whole host of US partners, including MCA Chicago, and here in New York, Harlem Stage, Mabu Mines, and Summer Stage. It doesn't have a firm date for the premiere yet. They're looking for the opportunity, a presenting partner for the premiere, and also for commissioning partners to finish the creative development of the digital media aspects of the work. So 2 opportunities in this. And here to present Demon Fruit Blues are the manager at Sozo Artists, Chisa Yamaguchi, and the creator and the composer and the performer, Tamerkali. But first, the video.
And free in the garden of Eden.
Our voices will rise like the sea, a tsunami of resistance, taking back what has been taken for granted, taking back what has been taken for granted, taking back.
Good morning. I'm Tamerkali, composer, performer, and creator of Demon Fruit Blues.
Hello, I'm Chisa Yamaguchi, producer and manager with Sozo Artists. Happy Rising, good to be with you. Demon Fruit Blues is a theatrical concert inspired by the majesty of female African deities, goddess-themed art, and feminist theory, centering embodiment and community in both creation and presentation. Demon Fruit Blues is a performance that utilizes movement, lighting and sound design, video projections, lyrics, and live music. The project is seeking a host for the world premiere, as well as commissioning partners for a final digital media and set design residency. The collaborators have also developed community engagement offerings to explore the process of musical storytelling and African diasporic dance through panel discussions, masterclasses, and workshops.
As a musician working with a palette that includes my experience in the New York City punk rock and hardcore scenes in the 90s and subsequent Afropunk documentary, my ethnocultural musical traditions of jazz and blues, as well as the classical music of my Catholic upbringing, my work draws from a host of themes. It's my hope that through an authentic sharing of my artist story, I might be able to bridge the gap of unfamiliarity and invite a range of audiences into a world different from their own. As long as I can remember, I've always wanted to feel fully expressed. And I latched on to every sight or sound that felt like freedom. We all are a synthesis of everything we have ever seen or heard. So humans, as a race of beings, have the potential to carry within us all the sounds that have ever existed in our time on this earth. Demon Fruit Blues is a theatrical concert experience that explores the origin of misogyny and the so-called curse of womanhood as outlined in Genesis 3:16. To the woman, he said, I will intensify your toil in childbearing. In pain, you shall bring forth children, yet your urge shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So this collection of works speaks to how the perception of the female body has reverberated through Western history and left an indelible socio-political mark on those who identify as women. Human history that highlights the accomplishments of women is not on par with the widely known accomplishments of men, and too often it requires a deep dive into the world of personal study and investigation. The seeking out of my predecessors is an important practice that has sustained me and supported my development as an artist and a human being. Marginalized artists are sometimes encouraged to seek attention that dubs them as a trailblazer, a lone island of originality in a sea of homogeny. And in the process of finding my way and developing my practice as an artist, I've been introduced time and time again to women who blazed trails and birthed movements. So I discovered that the road I traveled along wasn't paved, but it was a well-trodden path that was often concealed by the thorny weeds of racism and misogyny. I, like Eve, have sought knowledge and have traced my lineage of seeker, thinker, poet, rebel, blues woman, rocker, to myself through the words and work of women through the ages that have inspired me. And I believe that humanity must tend its garden to nurture all of our histories and maintain our memories. We must honor our family trees, blood, and spirit.
Thank you. We look forward to any questions and connecting further here at ISPA.
Thank you very much. You talk about a theatrical concert. In terms of a venue, should people think of a theatre space or a music space? What is your perfect thought of a space for this?
To support the immersive component of bringing everyone into the story, a black box theater would be a great canvas to start with.
And you said one of the pieces you've written about it, you say it can be indoors, it can be outdoors. And do you have a preference? I mean, is the perfect incarnation of this piece indoors or outdoors, or are you literally able to do it anywhere?
We're able to do it anywhere.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions? Yeah.
It's a series.
I'm going to repeat the questions for the video just quickly. So, a question about the musical structure of the piece: is it a series of separate items, and where does the background to the musical items come from?
Yes. So it's a series of songs that I've composed, and essentially how the set is built starts with the question and the concept almost of the Big Bang theory of an explosion into creation. And so the work follows this line where we start at the beginning, how I develop as an artist, linking my personal journey to the historical, musical, and cultural identity and those threads, and then we wind up back at the root. So it's like discovering my identity through the music, the things that have inspired me, and the output. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Are there any particular communities, regions to which you think this piece would particularly speak? I mean, I'm thinking of the people in the room from all over the world. Are there particular places you think this piece would really find a home?
Not necessarily particular communities, but there is a real goal to seek out a multi-generational experience. So both in performance and workshops and community engagement is really deeply rooted at the center of this work, and bringing in multi-generations into the space is really central to how this work developed and wants to continue to live in the world.
Yeah. Okay, last call for any questions? Okay, thank you very much. The next pitch also comes from Sozo artists, but very different. It takes us to Taiwan and Japan for Ink from the Huang studio that brings together dance and technology and visual art. You may remember a Huang pitch 2 years ago here at Pitch New Works. And in Ink, the Taiwanese choreographer Huang with the Japanese audio-visual artist Ryuichi Kurokawa explore artworks of the great Taiwanese calligrapher Tong Yang-tse, pitching the meticulous elegance of the calligraphy against Huang Yi's ferocious dance vocabulary to a wonderfully eclectic sound score. Ink premiered last June in Taiwan, co-commissioned by the National Taichung Theatre and the National Theatre in Taipei, and are now in discussion with presenters here in New York and also in Poland. And here to present Ink are the VP and Director of Sales at Sozo Artists, Ichun Ye, and the founder and artistic director of the Huang studio, Huang Yi.
Hey, Ispa, how are you? My name is Ichun Ye. I'm the Vice President and Director of Sales of Sozo Artists. Here with me is choreographer and inventor Huang Yi from Taiwan. We are thrilled here to be here with his new work, Ink, a work that fuses analog and digital, reflecting a harmonic tension between the realms of ancient practice and future design. Huang Yi and audiovisual pioneer Ryuichi Kurokawa dismantle and reconstruct the lines from 100 artworks in the silent music series by renowned calligrapher Dong Yang-zi, exploring the various texture between body, sound, visual, and space. Hovering between delicate and frantic dynamics, Huang Yi digs deeper into his cultural roots and unveils a wild movement language, turning dancers' bodies into brushes that paint and leave marks on stage. Kurokawa transforms the ink blots into luminous tracks, echoing and merging with the unique brushstrokes of Dong, creating a continuous flow of paintings through stunning holographic projection. Video, please.
My name is Huang, and I'm happy to return to ISPA for the 4th time. My collaborator, Ms. Dong, maintains a distance from technology, refraining from using a mobile phone or the internet. She always calls me from a landline, and it was like a bit like a call from another time and space. This aspect added a unique touch to our collaboration, as our approaches to technology were extremely different. My past works have never used elements of traditional culture, and for me, ink holds importance in cultural heritage. I asked myself, how should Ms. Dong's calligraphy dialogue with the limbs of humans and robots and Kurokawa's images? We want to maintain a contemporary and dynamic feel and to challenge the preconceptions of calligraphy as traditional and outdated through new medias and the movement of human and robotic performers. Ink interprets Ms. Dong's silent music series, and the abstract nature allows us to focus on the energy, space, and texture of the brush strokes. The absence of the specific Chinese characters eliminates the needs for the translation, making the beauty accessible even without knowledge of Chinese. When calligraphers finish a work, they typically use a stamp to leave their mark. I asked Ms. Dong if I could use her stamp, as it holds importance in our culture. Ms. Dong happily agreed, considering the combination of Kurokawa's audiovisual, her calligraphy, and the human-machine interaction as the signature of our time. Thank you.
Did anybody see the premiere in Taiwan? Yes.
I'm loud. I think you can hear me. Yes?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Shona from Lincoln Center, and I had the pleasure of seeing the piece for the premiere. It is a beautiful, stunning work, really elegant, very intimate. The collaboration between the dance, the video, and the sound design are gorgeous. I highly endorse it.
For the video, 5-star review from the Lincoln Center. Okay, you talk a little bit about an orchestra pit, the possibility of an orchestra pit rising during the performance. I mean, there will be venues that don't have orchestra pits. Do you have a plan B for venues that don't have orchestra pits?
Yes, definitely. Don't get scared about if you don't have an orchestra pit or it doesn't move. We get it. So we have plan B that will move things upstage, that will change the will change how we position the projection and make that work. So don't worry about it.
It's interesting to have you back, having done a pitch 3 years ago. Could you just say a little bit about how your own language has moved in the last 3 years? How does ink differ from the work that people remember you pitched last time?
I think it's say 我用中文好了。觉得那个累积可能变得越来越丰富，然后我对机器和人之间的那个平衡，我找到一些新的可能性。
So it's of course the layers have been more and more now, but the biggest difference that he thinks is that he finds a new balance between human and how to present human and machine on stage. That's the biggest thing for him.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Any last questions? Yes. So the question is, are the videos done in real time, and will he tour with the work?
No, the video is recorded, so everything is rehearsed to the video, and we are actually exploring that with his manager to see whether he doesn't need to travel with us, but how if there's an installation piece that can go with the performance.
Can you talk about the robotics in 15 seconds?
Well, find me at the table, but the robot.
the robots are actually in dialogue with him, and then you see that they hold the sticks. That is a symbol of the pen that you write the calligraphy. So basically, they are the calligrapher on stage.
And just to remind you, you can get all the detail in the world about these projects at the ProX afterwards. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Next, a beautiful new work in development from La Petita Malumaluga, who are a Spanish company who work with dance and music for babies and young children and their families. They've been going for 15 years, and they've toured over 20 countries with what they describe as artistically contemporary productions in non-childish languages. Here in New York, they had a sellout triumph 2 years ago at Lincoln Center. Marceline is their latest work. It explores the life of the pioneering clown Marceline Orbez and his great-granddaughter Eva. It features a dancer and a soprano and a string quartet. And in this pitch, they're looking both for touring opportunities or for co-production partners. Marcelina is scheduled to premiere in Madrid in June, and La Petita Malumaluga are currently in discussion about a European tour later this year, and here to present it is the artistic director of La Petita Malumaluga, Albert Villar.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone here at ISPA. It's a great pleasure to be here today. My name is Albert Villar. I'm a jazz musician, and together with my partner, Eva Villamijana, who's a dancer and choreographer, we started La Petita Malumaluga more than 10 years ago in Barcelona. Since the beginning, we were excited about the idea to open the theaters to absolutely everyone. Our dream was to welcome all sorts of people, no matter the social and cultural background, the gender, the origins, and of course, no matter the age. And one aspect that we realize is that children, and even more babies and toddlers, are probably the largest part of our population that are still nowadays generally not welcome to most of the performances. May I ask you, what do you think if I go to the Met with some toddler to enjoy an opera in the first row? Will they let me in? And what about kids' menus in restaurants? How come some of our children only eat pizza and chicken fingers? Should we wait until they are 18 to offer them some complex flavors and healthier food? Oops. Oh dear, no, sorry. This dream has led us to always create productions where babies and toddlers are welcomed. Welcoming babies and toddlers to the venues has forced us to research in all sorts of ideas to promote interaction. Our audience is always on the stage with us. Very, very close. Our interaction approach is, let's say, like a street show, where everyone is welcome to express themselves, but there, on top, we have the control of the lights, of the sound, all the stage technology, and all the tools that a theater has. So now we have babies, toddlers, and an heterogeneous group of adults on the stage interacting with us. Now it's time to talk about the contents. And here comes the word honesty. Honesty to make our best, to go a step beyond entertainment. Honesty to provide real contents. Can we talk about relevant matters as politics, genders, love, death, climate crisis, depression, or should we wait until they are 18? Honesty to avoid teaching them. We are not a school. Honesty to obtain all the resources to make our best possible creation, at least as a production only for adults. And finally, honesty to try our best to avoid offering the kids' menu and instead offer sophisticated and healthy dishes. And here's our latest production. This is Marceline. Marceline Orbez was born around Barcelona in 1873, and he established the lines of the modern clown language in London. He was without any doubt one of the key actors of the performing arts of his time and a creator of new performing formats. He was Charles Chaplin's mentor and Buster Keaton's reference. He was the main star at Hippodrome with 4,000 seats here in New York, probably the largest theater of his time in the world. A few years later, the cinema appeared and replaced theaters as the temples of entertainment. Charles Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and many others developed a strong movie career. Others, like Marceline, had a tragic end and were totally forgotten. A few years ago, we found out that Eva the dancer or choreographer, could potentially be his granddaughter. Almost from her birth, she has wanted to go on stage. No one has ever told her about Marceline, until her grandmother in the last years of her life explained her roots and why her parents wanted to discourage her from pursuing an artistic career. A few months ago, we had the dress rehearsals with the school that we are happy now to be able to premiere here today. So for the first time worldwide, here's Marceline. Hope you enjoy it. So with this project, we are taking two further, let's say, crazy steps that are optional. I repeat, optional. If the theater ticketing system allows it, we are able to, as always, have the families with babies with us on stage, but we can have also families with older children and adults by themselves on stalls. That's not a must. And the second one, that's even for more adventurous presenters, we are opening to have, instead of a string quartet, a 20-string piece on stage with us. That's it. It has been a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You work with children of different ages. Do you have a sense of the age range of which this piece is really aimed?
We always recommend to say, this is absolutely for everyone. We don't believe in childish language, so it's absolutely for everyone. We always recommend to advertise from 0 to 3 years old. 0 to 3. Obviously, other ones are welcome, but that's a social aspect that we can discuss further. If we advertise in a different way, it creates a bit of confusion. But it's everyone enjoys that. It's not a problem.
It runs just 35 minutes, which is obviously a good length for that sort of age range.
Yeah, that's something that we have for respect. Is like we always have the people, the babies are always on the stage with us. It doesn't make sense to have them up there, and it's always short pieces. So yeah, they can.
You talk about there being the possibility of an orchestral version for large theatres, and it seemed to me the essence of the piece is intimacy, and I couldn't quite imagine how it would work with an orchestra.
It doesn't have to be. The size is not important here. It's just imagine the experience of having a 20-piece orchestra at this distance. I think it's astonishing for me as an adult, so I cannot imagine for children to have that. They fit in a regular theater in not so really large venues.
Has anyone seen La Petita Maluga's work? Yes, say a word about it. I'm just going to repeat your point for the video and then ask your question. So for the video, it's a very inclusive work. It speaks just as powerfully to adults as it does to children. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now I have a mic. I was wondering about your local representation. Do you have any further idea what you're looking for with this local representation? Do you looking for the new production only, or do you want to revisit your production with the local artists?
We have, I'm not sure if it's Felipe here. We have the distribution here in the US and Mexico with Felipe from Fast Arts. And definitely we are looking for all kind of partnership. Everything is welcome. To be together and to team up is always much better than individual. So yes, anyone, sometimes we go by ourselves, sometimes we have an agent who helps us with that. But yeah, we've toured over 30 countries. But yeah, all help is welcome.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
We've arrived at the halfway point of this 75th anniversary of Pitch New Works, and we're going to pause for a minute to give you a few quick updates about pitches from previous sessions so you can see how this works. So first, three who were pitched at this session last year in New York. First, A Bark of Millions from Pomegranate Arts and Taylor Mack. That premiered at the Sydney Opera House last October, and it was called one of the best Australian live shows of 2023 in The Guardian. Next month, it comes here to New York, to BAM's Harvey Theatre, and to Cal Performances in Berkeley, and then in October, it's in Berlin, which sort of feels its spiritual home somehow. The Book of Life, which Ross Manson talked about a lot yesterday, from Volcano Theatre and the Woman Cultural Centre in Rwanda. That premiered triumphantly at the Edinburgh Festival 2 years ago. I've seen sensational reviews. Then it had its US premiere at the Spoleto Festival last June, more sensational reviews. Then to Kigali in Rwanda at the Ubuntu Festival. And then last fall, it did a 6-city US tour, ending at Arts Emerson in Boston. And now the same team are working on another project, a follow-up project, a piece of drumming theatre, concert theatre called I Have a Drum. And then lastly, from last year, The Ritual of Breath is the Right to Resist from Kiwi Productions and Nigel Smith. That's at Lincoln Centre this July as part of the Summer Festival in Damrosch Park. So that's last year. Go back 2 years, 2 projects from 2 years ago. Black Lodge from Beth Morrison Projects with the composer David T. Little. That premiered very successfully at Opera Philadelphia in October 22. It makes its New York debut next season. It then has plans next year for a West Coast US tour and a European tour, and the soundtrack album on Cantaloupe Music is nominated for a Grammy for Best Opera Recording. And lastly, Silence, from extraordinary piece from Black Dance and Carol Projects, has just completed a national tour of 19 venues right across Australia, and they've been invited to present at ISPA Perth, when ISPA goes to Perth in this spring, from April 30 to May 3, so you can see the piece if you come with ISPA to Perth. So that gives you a sense of how Pitch New works and the follow-up you get from it. Now back to this edition of Pitch New Works, for a partnership that's currently in development between Productions Onishka, between 2 indigenous artists, Émilie Monet of Canada and Waira Nina of Colombia. And it's the first of 2 projects today, focusing on the crisis around natural resources. Nigamon Tunai is a piece of multi-century theatre, and it explores indigenous resistance to extractivism of their living environments. It invites audiences into a ritual setting and explores traditional knowledge around the integrity of the universe. And it also weaves a wonderful bond of solidarity between indigenous communities in North and South America. It premieres in May at Espace Go in Montreal, as part of Festival Transamérique. And here to present Nigamon Tunai are the General and Artistic Director of Onishka Productions, Émilie Monet, and the Director and Booking Agent at Cusson Management, Valérie Cusson.
Kwe, Ani, Anya Jibimadzi, and my name is Émilie Monet, so I'm Anishinaabe First Nations, based in Montreal.
And I'm Valérie Cusson. I'm a booking and development agent for Canadian companies.
So Onishka Productions, Onishka is actually a word in Anishinaabe-Moan, my mother's language, meaning wake up. So it's really looking how art can be a tool to create more understanding about our realities as Indigenous people, our struggles, and also the richness of our worldviews and our cosmovisions. And wake up because I believe that our worldviews can actually provide pathways toward more sustainable communities. So we're creating bridges between Indigenous artists and communities worldwide, and this is to create also more solidarity. I'm actually the artist in residence at Espace Go, and my work, we see two images there. Okinom was my first work that won several awards and toured internationally. And the last work, Marguerite Lefeu, that's my most recent work, was presented this past July at Festival Avignon. But I'm here to speak about my upcoming production, which is called Nigamon Tunai, and which will premiere this spring. This is a work that I'm creating in collaboration with my dear friend and artist and Indigenous leader, Waira Nina Hakanamihoy Mutumbahoy. She's from Colombia, from the Inga Nation in the Amazon, Colombia. And the notion of reciprocity is very at the heart of this project. We've been collaborating for 12 years now, and with residencies both in Colombia and in Canada. And now we're about to birth the project. The project also stems actually from a promise of some words that we shared in a ceremony 12 years ago when I was there in her community. And basically the elders at the ceremony asked me to come back with more Indigenous people from the north, but to really see how we can create more bridges between our communities, especially for the protection of our spiritual knowledge and our medicines that are that are jeopardized because of all the extractivist projects right now. So more specifically, we're really looking at the effect of all these projects on water. And in my culture, such as in Waira's culture, as women, it is our responsibility to be protectors of the water and make sure that the water is clean for the future generations. So Nigamon Tunai means in Anishinaabe, Moan, and in Inga, those are two words meaning song. So it's really looking at how the songs of us as women is being really shut down because of all this extractivist philosophy that we have right now. So what is the work exactly? So basically so the work is being created right now, but we presented a work in progress of 45 minutes last June at Festival Transamérique in Montreal. And the audience is invited to walk into a space that it looks like an enchanted forest. There are real trees, live trees in the space, and benches and objects made out of copper that are all around the space. So people are invited to sit among the trees and to be immersed in the space and to reflect on their relationship also with the living, not just human, but also the trees, the rocks, and the water. We're collaborating with a sound artist from Bogota. His name is Leonel Vasquez. So he invented objects made out of copper that we activate, and these objects enable us to really hear the sounds or the songs of elements that are usually not so audible if we don't pay attention in our busy lives, such as the songs of water and the songs of rocks. For example, he invented an instrument that looks like a turntable, but instead of putting a vinyl, you put a rock, and each rock has their own songs. So the piece is, the first part is really activating the space, me and Waira, so that with our breaths, our voices, and our bodies, we create a sense of another kind of a sense of deep listening, basically.
So we're looking for spaces that are quite large. Black boxes are the best scenario for us. The dimensions are 13 meters by 12 meters, but it is still possible to create new spaces out of large prosceniums or unusual theater spaces. This kind of setting would allow between 100 and 145 seats. We require a 1 day prior setup, and the touring staff is between 6 to 8 people, depending on how many performers will be coming with the company.
So in this state, so the photos that we're showing are actually photos from the work in progress, so keep in mind that we're elaborating on it. But in that state of deep listening, once we get to that, then this is a space where we can finally hear the voices of the land defenders and our spiritual leaders. And for the piece, we're really focusing on actually a specific issue, which is the one of copper extraction on OIWA's family land. You may not be aware, but it's mostly Canadian multinationals going into the Amazon right now, and especially in Colombia. And so really one of the questions that stemmed from this project was to be how to be a good ally as an indigenous person from the north. I'm also mixed. I'm half French and half Anishinaabe. And what is our responsibility, or how can we be a good ally? And in the end, the answer is how to be a good friend. So we did interviews with her family members. Her uncle is a taita, so a spiritual healer. And they're building a road right next to the maloka, so the spiritual house where you conduct ceremonies. And with her cousin, who's also a lawyer, and looking at the copper extraction, knowing that for us Anishinaabe people, copper is really central to our ceremonies. It's very sacred. We use copper rattles, copper drum, and women that are walking, the grandmothers that are walking around the Great Lakes to pray for water, are actually carrying water in copper vessels. So, yes.
Thank you very much.
We will invite you to come see us at the Pro X tables and to see the premiere in Montreal in May 2024.
Yeah. Do you? I mean, that was a really interesting sort of layout you had on the slides earlier on. Do people who have a black box that isn't actually exactly those proportions, could it be reconfigured for different shaped spaces?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's a very modelable proposition. On stage at FTA, we will be OIWA and I, but also 2 performers, local, from Colombia and Canada, Turtle Island. And but we can be just 2. And the idea is to also generate conversations about indigenous. Our knowledge, actually, about how to protect water and the earth.
You can say more at the ProEx about this, but just in a couple of sentences, you talk about the possibility of Canadian and Quebec travel grants. Can you just give us sort of an overview of what those possibilities are, and then more detail in the ProEx?
Yes, so the Canadian and Quebec companies have access to touring grants that can cover a percentage of travel of people, of cargo, per diems, visas, that kind of stuff. So there is a possibility of working with a flat rate and applying for those grants.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions? Yes. For the video, another 5-star endorsement from the Edinburgh International Festival, who are presenting it this summer, and talked a lot about the exquisite nature of the work. Roy, thank you so much. No, actually, we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Next, more theatre, but it's very different. From Singapore comes OIWA, The Ghost of Yotsuya. It's the latest piece from the Finger Players. It's they're Singapore's oldest puppetry theatre company, founded in 1999. And this is based on the Japanese ghost story of a jilted wife who haunts her murderer. And it's one of the most regularly cited examples of the new puppetry language in Singapore, which mixes live action and puppetry in very subtle ways, influenced a little bit by traditional Japanese performance techniques like bunraku and ningyobori. OIWA premiered at the Singapore Festival in 21, but much of its creative and financial planning, and especially its tour planning, was completely messed up by COVID. So this pitch is really important to the company as they try to put the work out on the world stage. So here to present OIWA, The Ghost of Yotsuya, is the director and the playwright for the Finger Players, Chong Tse Chien.
Hello everyone, my name is Tse Chien. My friends back home call me TC, so if you see me today, just call me TC and I'll be happy to chat with you. And I'm sharing the Ghost, OIWA, The Ghost of Yotsuya, and throughout the entire presentation, I'll be showing you the excerpts for the video as I'm speaking, so you can either look at the video or you can just look at me. And if you are looking at me right now, I would just like to share that I like having plastic surgery, not on my face, but in my work. And what I mean by plastic surgery is that I like to reinvent old things. And in this production, the idea is that we want to turn something old inside out that still retains the DNA in such a way that rejuvenates the subject matter in a holistic and organic way. In my work, I like to reframe traditions and old school theatre techniques. For this production, I focus on two traditions as my springboard for creation. One is kabuki, and the other a classic Japanese ghost story. And to sum it up, OIWA is a tale of betrayal, murder, and ghostly revenge based on real-life events in 17th century Japan. There's actually a shrine dedicated to OIWA in Tokyo. And according to urban myth, one needs to seek permission from the shrine and Lady OIWA itself to bless the production, failing which bad things will happen to you and the production, and you die a terrible death. So I have sought permission from the shrine to put up this play. And what is the story in short? I'll just summarize. Man falls in love with a rich girl. Girl takes man as a husband. Man falls out of love with his wife because he has eyes for another woman. He kills wife. Wife comes back as a ghost to torture and kill him. I think that summarizes my breakup stories in history. But I've reframed and reimagined the story by injecting new characterizations and shed light on, and psychological motivations to shed light on the protagonist OIWA, and more importantly, on her murderer, her husband. And the story of OIWA is told through his perspective of how a murderer justifies his own actions. Therein lies the true horror of the play. The staging concept is inspired by a very specific kabuki technique known as ningyoburi, which is the concept of having human actors playing and moving as though they're puppets. Again, I've only taken the DNA of this concept and devised original training methods and staging methodologies around it. As you can see from the video, the actors are performing as puppeteers, as you can see them dressed in black, and they speak the lines of the puppets that they are manipulating. The puppets are human actors moving in such a way to appear as though they are speaking as what a puppet would appear to do. The actors wear masks, and their costumes have hidden structures underneath to make them look more rigid and doll-like, so that they can better pull off the illusion that they are inanimate objects being manipulated. In this way, we can have different actors play the same role to create old-school theater magic, such as quick appearances and exits, as what you can see here, or having one character appear in different locations at the same time as our special effects on stage. A character could also transform into another character in the flesh by switching masks as part of the haunting. Now, admittedly, horror can be a very tricky thing to do in live theater, it's not film. But in our case, with lights and sound, and with this staging style, we were able to pull off genuine scary moments, evoking audiences' imagination by fusing text and physical theater and theater magic reimagined. The clips that you're watching right now are just snippets of these moments. Now, what are these moments for? Primarily is to tell a good story and to augment the story of a murderer who plays victim, who is using that as an excuse to justify his abusive and manipulative ways as his coping strategy to seek attention and diffuse responsibility. It's not a scary play because it has ghosts in it. It's a scary play because it's murder most foul. It's an ugly ending, but it's a perfect marriage between Singapore and Japan. The production was performed in Japanese, with actors from both countries taking turns to play the puppets and the puppeteers. The Singapore actors don't speak a word of Japanese. The Japanese actors don't speak English. I can speak about 4 Japanese words. But it would appear as though the actors on stage could understand one another because of the training methods and the non-verbal cues in the staging vocabulary. And it will seem as though everything was choreographed, but actually there's a live element to it, which is there is some manipulation involved because the actors, the puppeteer is actually touching the back of the puppets that they're moving, and with the fingers, they can actually detect where the puppets in front could actually detect how and they should move. And I'm going to show you how the training methods were evolved along the way. And even though we reference traditional methods and techniques, the training methods are original and completely devised from the ground up. And this is a video of how the actors were abused by me. Let's show the video. As you can see, that this is part of the body conditioning exercise. Actors were performing as puppets were strapped to poles and sticks to restrict their movements as though their limbs and bodies were made out of wood. And based on these physical restrictions, they have to move as lifelike as possible as though they were puppets being manipulated. So the process is to make them less human to be more human. And for me, that is the value in the work. Not because of the product, but the process as well, because we are exploring and expanding on the possibilities of traditional techniques with the injection of original and modern training methods and concepts, and bridging the gap between traditions and modernity. The play opened in 2021 as part of the Singapore Festival of Arts. It was well received. I won't go too much into that, but I will only say that the play was half realized because the original intention was to work with the oldest Japanese traditional marionette company and to incorporate the string mechanisms as part of the actor's physicalization. But because of travel restrictions, that plan was abandoned and we just went ahead without the string mechanism as part of the physicalization of the actors' bodies. But with this particular platform, we would actually like to seek partners, festivals, and programmers to help us fully realize the work so that we could bring and fully realize the process and the product that we are embarking on. So thank you very much.
We're still living with so many projects that bear the scars of COVID, and then yours is just one. Did anybody see the premiere? Yes, tell us about it.
Valiantly and credit to the National Arts Council for allowing us to bring the Japanese performers, despite the restrictions, into Singapore. It was a stunning production, as you can see from the video, and on scale, and I would say one of the strongest things that came out of 4 years of the festival.
5 stars from it was possible to bring the Japanese performers to do it, and yes, I'm not going to try and summarize. That was too eloquent to be summarized. Did anybody else see the premiere? Okay, any questions? You say about the practicalities of it, the get-in, that you talk about a 6-day schedule of setup, then 7th day dress rehearsal, 8th day performance. I mean, for a lot of venues, I think that would be a real problem. I mean, is there a way of condensing that?
Yes, definitely. I think it's because it's already half finished, and I think a lot of the process has already been established, and the training methodologies were already established by the actors and by myself. So it's about refreshing it, and the investigation is almost done, and we have already finished that process, but it's about that last 1% of fully realizing the work. So that it's about bridging modernity and traditional tech methods. And that's the experiment that we are embarking on.
Yeah. Okay. Any last questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, another of today's projects that is a truly global project. It's World Opera Lab's Ring of Our Time. It's in development between Iraq and the Netherlands, Nigeria, Indonesia, and Mexico, and it's the second of today's two projects that are about the larger issue of natural resources. It's inspired by Wagner's Ring, and it uses the methodologies of the world's oldest civilizations to explore our own environmental crises, bringing together 40 artists from different parts of the world, exploring sustainability both as subject matter and as part of its own process of production. It's actually a continuation of World Opera Lab's last project, Ina Aya, Voice from a Fading Forest, which was about deforestation in the Kalimantan rainforests in Borneo. And it builds on that work with artists from Kalimantan in Indonesia, Baghdad, and Lagos. Ring of Our Time will premiere in Sulaymaniyah in Iraq, and it has its European premiere at the Holland Festival in June. And here to present Ring of Our Time is the artistic director of World Opera Lab and ISPA's Netherlands fellow, Miranda Lakerveld.
Good morning, Ispa. Such a pleasure to be here. I'm presenting alone. However, my colleague Anwar Awad has recorded a message from Baghdad that you will hear at the end of my presentation. Before I go into the project, I want to tell you a little bit about how we view opera. We make operas to reflect on global issues, cluster facts between the North and the global South, if we like to use that, tell them. This is actually the secret title of this piece. For us, European opera is one of many practices around the world that combine mythology, music, and staging, and this combination of performing art forms is found in almost every culture, from the oral tradition of the Tagnalawe in Kalimantan, which you just saw in Aya, to passion plays in the Middle East, to the ultra-canonized art form of classical opera. Many of these art forms have spiritual roots, and they are well rooted into the social fabric of their societies. They tell stories of transformation, social justice, and change. And from this perspective, I think opera can be a model of what performing arts can be in times of crisis, like this one. As already mentioned, thanks so much, in 2024, 40 artists from 4 continents will come together in the Euphrates region to create this work. And mythologies of these ancient civilizations will be interwoven from the Euphrates region, Mexico, Nigeria, and Indonesia. The forces that protect nature, the earth, the water, the forest, and the trees, they take the lead role in this new piece. It shows ancient connections between cultures and reflects on the global use and misuse of natural resources, the clusterfuck. We see the ancient goddesses in our time. Tiamat is crying on the banks of the drying Euphrates River. Olokun curses the oil that pollutes her waters. And Ina Aya walks through burning forests in Kalimantan. It is a result of a unique collaboration. I'm so happy about these collaborations between artists, but also activists, scientists, spiritual leaders, and guardians of heritage. And we have developed a new way of working. It's a synthesis of collaborative projects over the last 4 years in Amsterdam, Kalimantan, Iraq, Nigeria, and Mexico. So all these 4 locations, we are in different stages of development. From workshops to concerts to full operas. And you're seeing some slides now. Could we possibly go back to the first one? One back? Yeah, so this is workshops in Iraq. And the next one, please. These workshops in Nigeria, just last summer. Next one. This is a village meeting in Kalimantan about our piece. And then the next one. This is Mexico, just last month. What we learned through these exchanges is that ancient stories across the globe have many symbols in common, and they can be very powerful to reflect on our global connections and entanglements. And that will be a mix of classical and traditional instruments with different ensembles from Kalimantan. Next slide. This is Balantuman Ensemble. The next slide. This is World Opera Lab Ensemble in Amsterdam. Next slide. Sargent Ensemble in Baghdad. So we have some of the dialogues already became full pieces. And this is our piece that we made in Oboroshoki in Lagos. The next one is Va Pensiero about the water crisis in the Middle East in 2021 in Amsterdam. And Ina Aya in the Holland Festival. And last year it performed in the rainforest of Kalimantan. We try to impact policymakers and create awareness. Therefore, we work with activists or artivists, as my colleague Anwar explains in this video.
Hello, everybody. Hope you are doing well. I am Anwar, and I am an artivist. Artivist is a term refers to the activists who use art to deliver messages. I am an environmental activist. I do work with the Protectors of the Tigris River Association, or Huang Dijla. In Huang Dijla, we try to protect the water, environment, and the heritage of Iraq. I am also a percussionist in Sanchat band. In our band, we try to use art and music to focus on the social issues. In a country like Iraq, who has a huge history and a very rich and important culture and heritage, we today suffer from the water shortage, and Iraq is considered one from the very vulnerable countries against the climate change. This is why I see, or I believe, as an artivist, that we need to take every single opportunity, including the art and music, because it can touch people easily, to focus on this issue, to protect our water, our environment, and to build peace among the community, and also to keep and protect our history and culture from being disappeared.
At the moment, we're still conducting workshops, and we had to rearrange a little bit because of the situation in the Middle East. So we're replanning. The premiere in the Holland Festival will be next year. So we will premiere in Suleimani in the Roman Theatre. Collaboration is the heart of the project. We work in a modular way. So if you resonate with these themes, please come and talk to me. We can work together along different levels. Yes.
Thank you very much. Did anybody... Did anybody see Ina Aya, the piece from which the new piece is developed? Yes, no? No. You talk a little bit about focusing on the sustainability of production and touring, and for everybody that's such a live issue at the moment. Say a little bit about how you're approaching that.
I realized that from yesterday that we actually have where you normally would make a piece and then tour it, so like starting here and going out, we do it reversed. So this model of workshopping the themes, that's a way of testing the themes and also finding partners and artists to work with. So that's the start of any of this project, but it's more like an ecosystem in a way. So we can tour the big production, or we could tour in Aya, but it has these different levels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The mix of components that come together, and it is so complex. Can you say a little bit about the ideal space for it?
There's a beautiful Roman theater in Sulemania. So it's created for a round space. We really love to have this immersive space and the audience close to the stage as well. So more ritualistic space. So round is preferred.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our penultimate pitch today is a dance project developed between Britain and China by Farouk Chowdhury and his new company, Fengling Productions. 10,000 tons of Moonlight. It takes its inspiration from the poetry of Huang, a leading Chinese poet living in a small village in Zhongshan who has cerebral palsy. It's an extraordinary partnership between a disabled woman who's lived her whole life in rural China and a Pakistani man raised in metropolitan London. And for Farouk, it marks a really important new step in his extraordinary career. 10,000 Tons of Moonlight premieres at the Shanghai Arts Festival in November, and here to present it is the producer and the director of Fengling Productions, Farouk Chowdhury.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning, everyone. It's so great to see so many friends here. It's so comforting and heartwarming. So as Anthony said, I'm Farouk Chowdhury. I'm the artistic director of Fengling Productions in London. For those fans of Akram Khan, don't worry, I haven't stopped being his producer. There are just two versions of me now. So I'm really humbled and privileged to be here, to be able to share this new artistic adventure we just started early last year. I'm collaborating with the brilliant Chinese contemporary poet Yotsuya on a project called 10,000 Tons of Moonlight. As Anthony said, she was born with cerebral palsy in rural China, and she's been described as the Emily Dickinson of China, as well as one of the 11 most courageous women in the world by the New York Times in 2017. It makes you wonder what happened to 10. After reading her profoundly moving poetry, it sparked this idea in me to blend my two passions, poetry and dance, into something that speaks to me and of me in a whole new way. Now, I've been around the block quite a few times as a producer, and I'm a kind of newbie in this role of director, as I'm now compelled to seek my own artistic alchemy by letting myself roam freely in a perverse fantasy world with unrealistic expectations. Thank you for your understanding. As well as seeking to craft a performance that is beautiful and captivating, the driving purpose of this project is to ask questions about the relevance of personal struggle in today's world as we endeavor to discover who we are in a constant whirlwind of diversions. Yotsuya once wrote, "The less I have, the more I need to write about it." These words blew me away and emboldened me to contemplate on whether stepping out of the shadows liberates our own 10,000 tons of moonlight, or do these shadows hold a deeper meaning as we wage a war between what we could be and what we should be. So I'm not going to talk your ears off because, as my partner constantly reminds me, half-empty jugs make a lot of noise. I'm here to share this daring and delicate vision with you to see if any of you would consider it worthy of co-production support and touring possibilities. So I'm now going to share with you a small teaser of the initial research. Video, please.
我额头的沟壑已如此深，但还不够。我的望顿月色已经沉入海底，但还不够。在你之前，我已经写下1000篇情书，这些哪够？
Heard about Yotsuya
by reading about her in the New York Times in 2017. I read about a woman born with cerebral palsy in rural China who took to writing poetry in her 20s as a way to free herself from an unhappy marriage. Her profoundly moving words reflects on desire, love, longing, loneliness, her disability, beauty, and society's expectations placed on women. And in each poem, I felt the struggle of what it means to live a life of contradictions. I felt compelled to connect with Yu Shohua. There was something in her poetry that resonated with me, such as the struggle of a person searching for a place to belong and to be accepted. Somehow, it aligned itself with my early life experiences of growing up as a Pakistani immigrant in the UK.
站在广角的蜡烛灯下，如果你等的是年轻的我，我就以左手抚摸你脸颊；如果你等的是年暮的我，我就用我的长戟没收你热忱而孤独的一生。
I'm absolutely thrilled that Yu Shohua will perform in this production with 2 dancers and 1 actress. It will be a blessing to have her free-spirited humor with us on this journey. And in the next 12 months, we will integrate physical, visual, and musical expressions into her poetry. I hope by the time we've finished this collaboration and arrive at a place that we are all proud of, we've created a meaningful work that makes us reflect on how do we emerge from the shadows, embrace our authenticity, and most importantly, stay true to our nature. Let me leave the last word with Yu Shohua herself. She wrote this for me. Thank you.
I don't want to cut off before we've had time to read it, because it's such a poetic text. That I wondered, Farouk, how you're approaching the business of translation when it tours, because my sense of it is you wouldn't want to take your eyes off the stage.
Well, see, I hired the actress originally to be a kind of a performing translator. But it became clear with me through the research that she was almost her alter ego, not just a person to perform a function on stage. So we've now looking at kind of really interesting artistic ways for it to be the person, the protagonist who actually goes on the journey of the struggle and the self-discovery. So we're still very at the early stages and we're exploring that. But it's really important that one understands the poetry and that it is translated, but also it is heard in English language as well.
But the language the actor speaks is... The language the actor speaks?
In English and Mandarin.
Ah.
Yeah.
So there's no subtitles, you can focus entirely on...
We try and avoid using subtitles, but if we're going to bring them in, we've got to do them in a very aesthetical way, rather than just put them at the top of the stage.
I mean, it looks to me the sort of piece you just wouldn't want to take your eyes off the stage for a minute.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's the ambition, though.
Okay, questions. Okay.
If there are no questions, then I'm going to take my time because I've got 1 minute, 20 seconds left, right? And I will take advantage of it. Right? I think one thing I didn't mention in the opening speech that I gave was that it is an international collaboration. We have a composer from Spain who actually his composition was involved in a documentary that was nominated for an Oscar last year. We have a dramaturg from India and France. We have a writer from Hong Kong, and we have a really incredibly award-winning lighting director called Michael Holes, a lighting designer. So that's when, and as well as the 4 protagonists on stage, we are actually recreating 9 huge shadows, which also in effect become performers. So it is designed not for a small stage, a medium-sized stage, and hopefully with some flying facilities. So that's kind of really integral to the vision of this process.
Farooq Chowdhury, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And finally to South Africa for The Great Yes, The Great No. It's a production from the Office Performing Arts and Film and South Africa's luminary artist and designer and filmmaker William Kentridge. It's a cross between a play and an oratorio and a surrealist chamber opera, and it follows the true story of a ship traveling in 1941 from France to Martinique. It layers history with fiction, so it augments the real passenger list with a whole galaxy of extraordinary figures from world history. It's co-produced by the Centre for the Less Good Idea, Kentridge's interdisciplinary arts makerspace in Johannesburg, and it was created with his regular extraordinary company of creative collaborators across all disciplines. It premieres in France this July at the Aix Festival, then it tours through Europe and the US in 2024 and 2025. And here to present The Great Yes, The Great No are the founding director of the Office Performing Arts and Film, Rachel Chanoff, and the dramaturg and lecturer at the University of Cape Town, Mamwena Kwabe.
Thank you. I'm delighted to tell you about Williams' The Great Yes, The Great No, which, as Anthony said, is going to in collaboration with X in July, and I'm here with my beloved colleagues. And we are touring in collaboration with our great partners, Quattro, and of commissioners already, which include the Luma Foundation, Batat in Montreal, and looking for is more commissioners to join our. So, video, please.
We're on board. Refugees escaping from